Gary Lineker, what a surprise. The usual virtue signalling, pontificating. He's retweeted, so he hasn't posted it himself. He's just posted what someone else had done, another organisation had done, calling for Israel to be punished by FIFA for the bombing of Gaza and be basically banned from all international football. But a lot of people pointing out that he didn't call for Russia to be banned over Ukraine. He didn't call for Assad, Syria to be banned for bombing of their own people, or indeed the Chinese for the way their treatment of the Uyghur people, or anybody, Iran. No, the only country he seems to have a problem with is Israel. What does that tell you about his virtue signalling?
Julia, if I was John Holmes, who's Gary's agent, I'd chop off his Twitter fingers. Really, because I mean, he really is getting a bit beyond the pale now. So just chop off his fingers and say, "Look, Gary, I'm going to put some plaster around those fingers, and you can't tweet because he's getting silly." Concentrate on football, Gary. But you know, in terms of your survey, that's a bit of a confection, isn't it? You know, about hundreds of people. Hundreds of people get fined for not paying their water bills, not paying their council tax, for speeding. You know, well, the BBC is a service, it provides a service.
I'll come back, John. I'll come back onto that because I need to explain what that is for our audience. But just in terms of Gary Lineker, though, I mean, given the terms where if you work for the BBC, you basically have to abide by, political neutrality. He's breached that many times. We've had a rejigging of the terms of these contracts and what you're allowed to do if you're a freelancer, if you're not a news or political journalist. But he seems, whatever the rules are, he seems to breach them again 2 weeks later, doesn't he?
Change my position on this one slightly, Julia. I think Tim Davies should invite him into his office and kick him around and say, look, Gary, you're wonderful, you're worth 1.3 million, but let's cut off your Twitter fingers, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Well, look, let's talk about this talkTV investigation, looking at 130, almost 130 people every single day are prosecuted for not paying their TV licence to fund the BBC. There's 47,500 were prosecuted. Vast majority of those, I think 44,000, were convicted in 2022. But the key thing about this is, yeah, look, we're legally required to do that. People don't do it, they're going to face prosecution. Vast majority of these people are very, very low incomes. It's largely women, a lot of elderly people as well. But the key thing here is that a lot of these are happening in sort of what are effectively secret courts, a magistrate, often even on Zoom. People haven't, the vast majority of people who face prosecution haven't replied to the court summons. They're the kind of people who probably don't reply to any post at all. They're not there to defend themselves. It's written evidence. They're convicted. They can face fines of up to £1,000. Are we in something akin to the same territory as the Post Office Horizon scandal in terms of people being prosecuted?
Let me ask you a simple question, Julia. How many people have been sent to prison for not paying their TV licence in the last 2 or 3 years? Do you know the answer?
I don't know the answer. There used to be a number, but very, very few.
Zero, absolutely zero.
Yeah.
If people choose not to pay, that's fine. But look, the BBC is coming up for a licence review in 2027. It has to think of creative ways to deliver the licence fee. And I would suggest they have a hybrid where you pay £100 basic licence fee, you get everything for that once. And beyond that, you have to go via the iPlayer and pay subscriptions. But I think, the idea of a license fee that goes up and up and up has probably had its day. And I think the BBC is starting to think that way as well. So you have a mixture of license fee and subscription. But,
yeah.
If people have a television, they must pay a license fee of some sort or another.
But that's what people feel is unfair, isn't it? That because they may not ever watch the BBC and yet they are required to fund it. Whereas, if you don't watch Netflix, you don't have to pay for a Netflix account.
Well, what's the average subscription to Sky, do you think, Julia? It's £26 a month. What's the subscription to Netflix? Is anywhere up to 18 quid.
But people have chosen to do that.
Yeah, but
how people choose to spend their money. Someone wants to spend thousands on a subscription for to films. They can do that, but that's the choice.
97% of people use the BBC at some point in the course of the week. They use online, they use radio, whatever. People do use the BBC. It's a nonsense to say people choose not to watch the BBC. Compare that £14 a month, which it will be from April, to what you have to pay for the streamers. Okay. And believe me, it's a bargain. And the programmes are so much better, apart from anything else.
Are they? I barely watch anything. I like my Strictly, but I barely watch it. I certainly don't watch. Given up on the news.
Did you not watch the Coronation on Queensberry?
I listen to the Today programme, so I've got something to shout at in the morning.
Ah, okay. Well, that's probably.
But I'd quite happily not have it exist. That's why I did the breakfast show for so many years, because I wanted to provide an alternative to sane people to the Today programme.
Look, this is a confection, you know. How many people are done for speeding every day? The idea of secret courts. Of course, lots of people go through the courts, but and that should be avoided. So look, what happened with the over 75 license fee, which you might remember 4 or 5 years ago, you were all jumping up and down saying how terrible it was. How many people being convicted of not paying that? Probably zero.
Well, probably because they're not stupid enough to do it. Obviously, I wasn't jumping up and down about it. Actually, I did.
No,
John Mayer, I'll have to leave it there. Time's against us. Editor.
They means tested it. Means tested license fee.
Yeah.